ho, ho! Merry Christmas, everybody. And it is time for my Christmas Eve Q&A session. And now, in the if you remember, I posted the announcement for this at the end of October. So you had almost 2 whole months to get your questions in, and only 6 of you did so. So for the 6 of you that sent me questions, I commend you. For the ones who didn't, well, you always have next time. Alright, so as I mentioned, I received a total of, well, 6 people sent me questions, and I'm going to go in no particular order. Let me check my Word document here. 1, 2... Or is it 5 people who sent me questions? I think it was 5 or 6. But anyway, I am going to start with Greatby789, and he asks, what series would you like to try on the PlayStation and why? Well, that is a good question. Well, I would like to try Spyro the Dragon. I didn't get a PS1 until the middle of 2014, so I've never played Spyro the Dragon, but I would like to try it. Reason being is that it looks like it's a fairly interesting series, and plus I've seen Greatby79 do a Let's Play for that particular game. So yeah, I would definitely like to give the Spyro the Dragon series a try on the PS1. I would definitely like to try that. Then next up, he asks, would you ever consider purchasing a Sega Genesis? Why or why not? And as a matter of fact, I would consider purchasing a Sega Genesis. The main reason being that I have never owned a Sega Genesis before. Yeah, I've never owned one before, but I would certainly like to. And I think the most recent version that has come out for Sega Genesis is the AtGames model, which is the one that Greatby has. So, yeah, I would like to I would consider purchasing a Sega Genesis, because there's a lot of great games on there, like Sonic the Hedgehog, Mortal Kombat, and a whole bunch of other great stuff. And by looking at the comments section from the announcement video, it turns out that there were indeed 6 users that sent me questions, but 2 of them I forgot to copy, that I forgot to write down on my Word document. But anyway, so I would definitely consider purchasing a Sega Genesis, and another reason being that the AtGames model that I saw at the beginning of this month at Bed Bath & Beyond retailed for $50. So that would definitely make me want to consider getting a Sega Genesis, particularly that model, mainly because from what I've seen, it appears to be a fairly cheap price at $50. Plus, you get 80 games with that model. So, yeah. And by the way, while we're on the subject of Sega Genesis, I will call out Greatby789 on one thing. Now, if I Now, Great by 79, if you're watching this, you will recall that you did a video game update at some point in the summer where you got a Sesame Street Counting Cafe for the Sega Genesis, and in that particular video, you said you couldn't get that game to work on your @games model. And I think I might have figured out why, because I went to look at Sega Genesis games at a retro game store in my area not too long ago, and I think the problem is that it's one of those games that has like a yellow tab on the top of the cartridge. So I'm thinking that plus any other tall Sega Genesis cartridges that have that little thing on there will not work on an @games model Sega Genesis. So that's probably why you couldn't get Sesame Street Counting Cafe to work. So in order for you to play that on your channel, I would think, like you wanted to, I would think that you'd probably have to find a regular Sega Genesis model that does play those size cartridges. Alright? And the next question he asks is, out of all the Disney games in your collection, which is your favorite and why? Oh, okay, that is a bit of a tough one. I would probably have to say that my favorite would have to be The Lion King for the Game Boy. Mainly because The Lion King is one of my all-time favorite Disney animated films, and overall I think it's a pretty good game. I know they have a Super Nintendo version of The Lion King, and I think a Sega Genesis version as well, but I don't have the other versions of Lion King yet on the Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis. Alright, so that's it for the questions for Great by 789. I thank him for the questions. Next up, we're going to go to Blue Hedgehog Man 17. And he sent me several questions here. The first question he asks is, how old were you when you were first interested in video games? Let's see. Well, back in the early 90s, I want to say either 1990 or 1991 was when I was first exposed to an NES. And, of course, Super Mario Brothers. And I received that as a gift from one of my dad's co-workers that he had at that time. So that would have put me about 3 or 4 years old. So I would have to say roughly 3, maybe 3.5 when I was first interested in video games. Alright. The next question he asks, how long have you owned your Nintendo 64? Well, the one that I own right now, I have had since March of 2014. So, about a year and 9 months, because it's December 2015 now. So about a year and 9 months I've owned my current N64. However, this is not the only N64 I've owned. I did own an N64 in the late 90s. From, I think, 1997 up until 2002. So, my original N64 that I used to have, I had for about 5 years. And that was... Now, however, since that period was way before YouTube even existed, and before I had a video camera, there was no way for me to put footage on YouTube. Alright. Next, he asks, other than the Nintendo mascot, who is your favorite character in the Mario Party series? And by Nintendo mascot, he probably means Mario. Itself. So my favorite character besides him in the Mario Party series? That's a tough one. Because all the characters in the Mario Party series are pretty good. Now, as much as I like all the characters in the Mario Party series, if I were to pick a favorite besides Mario, I would probably have to go with the big turd known as Wario. Mainly because in the first two Mario Party games for N64, we get to hear him say, "Do I missed?" That's always funny. Alright, next question. Other than Tubular, what is your most hated level in Super Mario World? Now, now that question I can't really answer because even though I've played Super Mario World, I have never played the special levels for myself. So, unfortunately, I cannot answer that. Next question. Besides the 64, what is your personal favorite Nintendo system? Besides the 64, what's my personal favorite Nintendo system? I would probably have to say NES. Mainly because that's the system that I started off with when I first played video games back in the early 90s. So, and there's a lot of great games that are on the NES. So that would definitely be my personal favorite Nintendo system other than the N64. Next, have you ever played a game from the Crash Bandicoot or Spyro the Dragon series? The Spyro the Dragon series I have not played. However, I have played a game from the Crash Bandicoot series. I've played, let's see. And this would have been around the mid-90s when I played these on my cousin's PS1, which they had at the time. So I would have played the original Crash Bandicoot series, as well as Crash Team Racing. So yeah, Crash Team Racing I have played, and I would actually like to try and get that for my that game for my PS1 collection at some point in 2016. Other than the Sega mascot himself, who is your favorite character in the Sonic the Hedgehog series? I would probably have to say... Tails. Well, mainly because he flies a lot and he's Sonic's partner and everything. Plus, he's got some really cool gadgets, too. So, that's pretty neat. Let's see. What fighting games, if any, have you played when you were younger? I know I definitely... I think I played Mortal Kombat. I'm not 100% sure on that. But I know I definitely played the original Super Smash Bros. On the N64 when it originally came out. So I guess that would qualify. There's probably a couple of others, but I don't quite remember. Alright, the next one. Do you currently own a Super Smash Bros. Game besides the Nintendo 64's original? I do not. I just have the original Smash Bros. For the N64. I do not have Melee, which was the GameCube version. I don't have Brawl, which is the Wii version. And I do not have the new one for the 3DS or the Wii U. So yeah, besides the original Smash Bros., I do not have any other versions of that game. And finally, he asks, are you a big fan of 90s television? If yes, are you familiar with Nickelodeon's Legends of the Hidden Temple? Well, as a matter of fact, I have watched some 90s television. Shows like Full House, Boy Meets World, etc. But Legends of the Hidden Temple, I have not really seen too much of. Mainly because I live in Canada, and in Canada, Nickelodeon was not available to us at the time Legends of the Hidden Temple aired in first run. Although it might have aired on the on our Canadian counterpart YTV, but I am not 100% certain on that. Alright, well, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to stop here for right now, and we will continue with your questions in the next part of the video.